Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 11th, 2024 Board of Selectmen meeting. Following guidance issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in March of 2023, we are conducting this meeting in accordance with open meeting law and also in accordance with our ability to conduct this meeting remotely. Individuals wishing to participate in the meeting can do so utilizing the Zoom video conferencing software, which also has a number that they can dial into the call as well. Both the number and the link to participate in this meeting are available on the agenda, which is posted on the Board of Selectmen's website. In addition, any citizens or members of the community that wish to participate can also do so following us on Facebook. Yeah, we're pretty hip here. But if you're on Facebook, you cannot participate in the dialogue. So if you want to participate in the meeting, please connect using the link. So with that, I will start with citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments?
Chris has his hand up, Robin, in the chat.
Sure. Sorry, Chris, I did not see you. Would you like to say something? Which Chris? We have
Chris
two.
Boland. Chris Boland has, I think unless it's my...
Nope.
No?
No.
Looks like you have your, in the chat thing, it looks like you have a indicating for, no.
All right. Well, there being no comments, going once, going twice. All right, I'm moving over to item agenda 1.1. And item agenda 1.1 is the Community Center Building Committee is going to provide us with options for a director office. And Ford, are you going to be the presenter or is Elle?
Well, I don't know. I'm just going to open it and then I'm going to leave it to others. But I'm Ford Spalding, the chair of the Community Center Building Committee. Robin and John, thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening. The purpose of our meeting is to follow up on your request for an enclosed office to be added to the current design, construction of the current community center building, which is now under construction. The three options will be described with an estimated total cost and timing. We anticipate that you will decide as to your preferred option at this meeting and direct us to proceed. Because construction sequencing is important, timing is of the essence if we are to complete the building project on time and a budget. This past Monday, January 8th, the building committee received the same report you are about to receive. On the 9th, the recorded meeting was posted on the town website. Both Fenwick McCready Architecture and Building Committee unanimously recommended to you, if you still feel the additional enclosed office is required, that the front office option nearest the entrance to the building be selected.
Is that the one with the heart on the map?
Say that again.
On the diagram, is that because I had a really hard time following these diagrams, but I'm assuming it's the one with the little heart.
She's going to run through it for you. Yes,
okay,
it's near the
excellent.
heart. This is what we've used all the way through the project. Janice Centroa of FMA and Al Estries of Colliers will make the presentation. FMA, Colliers, and attending members of the building committee are happy to answer any questions or comments at your request.
Okay,
Janice, Al, it's in your hands.
Thank you, Ford. Robin, if I could get access to sharing my screen. Janice is going to start us off, but I'm going to be sharing my...
I do not have the power to give you access, but Chris has the power to give you access.
Robin, can I just ask a procedural question? So
sure.
I, being the liaison to the building committee project, was able to receive the whole project, the whole scope, everything that Al is about to present, Ford presented on Monday evening. We had a lively discussion. There was lots of in-depth analysis, and the recommendation of the building committee, as Ford just said, the recommendation of the building committee and our architects are unanimous to us to go with the first option. And what I was thinking is in the spirit of the amount of time and energy and effort that everybody has put into this. As I said, on Monday, we had a very in-depth, spirited conversation back and forth. I asked a lot of questions. There were a lot of very solid, detailed answers. Unless you want the building committee to go through all the slides again, my preference would be I am going to vote, or I'm going to make a motion that we accept their recommendation for this first space, again, based upon the amount of detailed analysis, time, energy, money that we have already spent going into it. So
Right, but
I'll
John,
certainly leave this up to you to
Right.
decide whether you want to go through it or not.
So we've been completely transparent from the get-go in this project. And the community saw that this was a agenda item on our agenda. And I do agree with you. It would be, so I think it's very important that we go through at a high level the various options that the building committee reviewed, and then the recommendation. And I would hope that Al and Janice, is that right? Did I get your name right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Could give us a really nice high level overview. I just think it's important for the community at large. And I looked through the package, and from the information that was provided, I think your recommendation was the right one. But if you could just give us a high level, what you looked at and why you are making the recommendation you're making, and that would be great.
Yeah, Robin, I think they can do that, but I think they need to go through, because your meetings are very well viewed by the public. And I
Right.
think it's important that they understand why the recommendation was made. So that's why I would ask your indulgence. And Janice, just you and Al can go through it, but I think you need to discuss every slide briefly and go through it. So the people who have no idea what's going on know how we got there.
Right, and Ford, I think you're saying the exact same thing I'm saying. I'm just asking them to keep it brief, but I expect that they'll go through each slide.
Thank you.
So there's the challenge, Al.
There you go, Janice.
Yep.
So we have a little egg timer. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. So briefly, we looked at 3 locations. 2 of them impact established program. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And one of them doesn't impact significantly established program, and really we feel just impacts layout. And that would be the front office location, which what ended up being the recommendation. Just a touch on the heart. So a lot of our presentations always talked about the community center being the heart of the community, but also that our lobby and our welcome desk and the cafe, that kind of those 3 spaces we kind of feel are the synergy of the community center, and in fact is the heart of our community center, and the community center is in fact the heart of the community. So that's why we have that kind of over where our welcome desk is at the 2 entrances.
So I misinterpreted it. Wasn't that you loved this option?
Yeah, no. So one of our points is that the one that we're suggesting at the front office is the closest to this heart of the community, which we felt was important for this office to be, particularly if it is to be used by someone managing the facility and its programs. So the 2 that impact established program would be storage. So that's the one at the top there, and community program or flexible activity. So that would be the lounge location.
Okay.
So next slide. So this is just a really quick look at all the programming that we did, right? So the most critical spots are both storage and flexible activities, because those are the 2 that we are calling established program. And through, lots and lots of community outreach and speaking with our user groups and working with the building committee, we right-size these rooms for the type of activities that would need to happen there. So the flexible activities you'll see are kind of in the blue row, which is one down, light blue rather. So those are all different sized rooms, and some of them have more flexible furniture than others. And the whole reason is because we have a whole host of programs we're trying to do in this facility. And so we need a few different types of rooms to be able to do that and accommodate each program differently. And this lounge is one of those spaces. And storage supports those spaces, because for us to be able to move all the furniture out of a room to use it flexibly as we'd like to, and use it for multiple reasons, we need a place to put that stuff when the room is being switched over. So again, storage and this lounge space, we consider established program that would impact the use of the building, the facility. Next slide. And this is just a reminder that, a lot of work went into establishing, how much program could we support at this facility. So this is just an example, daily lifestyle, a day in the life rather, schedule of, when there was a brainstorming session of how much program the community really needed. They came up with about 60 different things that could happen. And, taking just a few of those and saying, okay, this is for this type of space, this is for that type of space, you can see it gets full throughout the day using all those flexible activity spaces that we discussed.
Okay.
And so next slide. So this was one of the locations we looked at. It's called location 2. It's the storage area. So it would be kind of reallocating and reducing storage space to fit an office inside the COA suite. Again, we felt that this was kind of impacting established program. The storage was something we already reduced quite a bit during the programming phase to not increase the size of the building. So we really feel like it's important to keep the storage spaces at the sizes that we programmed. Next slide. This is the lounge location. This is just to show you that we looked at a couple different ways we could organize this space. We selected the one all the way to the left because that optimized the lounge space that was left over. And so that left the largest lounge space left. So next slide. But what that doesn't is you'll see on the right would be, the altered plan if we were to try to add this enclosed office in this location. It really kind of limits, it really impacts our program because it limits what we can do in that lounge space. The other one is kind of a nice big box that allows us to kind of push the more permanent furniture to the sides and get like a nice big space in the middle of the room. You see by that dotted square where we could introduce more furniture, more tightly packed and maybe get a nice meeting of 20 people if the other rooms are being used, where the room on the right, which is what we would be left over with if we were to, put an office in here, it becomes too tight to have that flexibility. And, we would only really be able to use the furniture in the room at that point, and you're kind of limited to 9, and it's quite tighter. It could introduce some obstacles for people with mobility issues and whatnot, a little bit less than our lounge on the left there, which is envisioned to not just be a lounge, but a meeting space when needed. So next slide. So this is the front office. So this is the recommendation we had even during the first studies. And we selected the one on the right. We think this is the one that creates 2 equal-sized offices, so it feels most equitable to us, and it allows for more circulation in the open office that remains in the front office. Sorry. The next slide.
And it's also visible in the heart of
yeah, and that was part of what I was going to discuss here as well. Is to us, this is the closest to the heart of the community center, heart of the community. It allows who's ever has this role to be right front and center and be very visible to the public and accessible to them by
Right.
being housed in this office that was always intended to somewhat monitor the facility. And so that is our layout there. So essentially to us, this isn't changing program. It's just changing the layout of one program space, taking what was a workstation and making it an enclosed office, which we felt was the request. And then
I'm gonna thank you, Denise.
Yeah.
So as far as the cost, we only have rough cost estimates at this point because we don't have the construction documents yet. That is part of the reason for the vote tonight. It will be to authorize the architect to proceed with the construction documents on the selected option. What we're looking at is, the rough estimate for option 1, which is the front office area. It's around $50,000. For option 2, which is, a little bit larger office within the lounge space of around 70,000, and then north of 70,000 for the storage area because there's some additional finishes that need to be considered. As far as the schedule, we have a little bit more time with option 1. The reason why is because it's located within the what's considered the new construction, and framing in that area is going to start a little bit later than the framing in the 1910 building, which is the building that is staying, and it's the building in which both the lounge and the COA storage areas are. So looking at the schedule in more detail, highlighted in yellow is where we are today. So what we have is we have a proposal from the architect to produce a construction documents for $12,300. And so the next step after the vote tonight will be FMA will get started on the construction doc, working with their engineers to put together the construction documents. That is anticipated to take about 2.5 weeks. Once the construction documents are ready, they're going to be sent over to the contractor. The contractor is going to work together with their subcontractors to put together a change order. That change order, that timeline is the pricing timeline is anticipated to take about 2 weeks. After that, the change order is going to be presented to the building committee for their vote. And then after that, finally, it's going to be presented to the Board of Selectmen to authorize or sign off on that change order and ultimately release the contractor to proceed with the work. As you can see here, the bottom right, we're getting kind of close as far as the schedule because this process, we're anticipating it's going to take until towards the end of February and the beginning of March. And framing in the 1910 starts at the end of February and middle of March for the new construction area.
Al, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for those that are viewing, how many engineering consultants are involved in this, and how many roughly, and you could just quickly name them, and how many during the construction process? It's not as simple as just putting up walls and adding a room. It affects a lot of different areas of concern for the building, as well as items that are code required.
Yeah, so you're going to have a list on the design side. You're going to have a list of HVAC, fire protection. You're going to have electrical, and you're going to have IT. On the construction side, you're going to have your MEP engineer, MEP mechanical subcontractor. You'll have low voltage as well. And yeah, there's you're going to have your framer also is going to have an impact. So there's going to be a number of different trades that are going to be involved in this.
And the fire protection with sprinklers, location of sprinklers are another facet.
Right.
Fire
So,
protection.
We certainly, I'm not debating this anymore. The decision was made and has been made to add an office for the director. We understand there's additional costs. Again, I'm going to reiterate, it's unfortunate that somehow this was not included. I really appreciate all the work that was done. I think the recommendation made by the architects is a good one. I need to continue to emphasize that this building is not going to have separate space for COA other than offices, administrative offices, and park and rec. Once again, all the space is for everybody in the community. And that's why it's important to have these flexible spaces so that it can be utilized by anyone and everyone in the community. So I just want to make sure that everybody, all the stakeholders understand that this is the way this building is intended to operate. So I appreciate the work you've done. You know, again, everything with this project seems to be extremely expensive. It's amazing to me that it's costing $12,300 to do the construction documents. But that being the case, again, it should have been part of the original building. In my opinion, it was something that was discussed over and over and over again, but we are where we are. And so I appreciate the work that was done. I think the outcome is the right outcome. The solution is a great solution. You know, the open area bullpen is the way most organizations work today. So, you know, we can certainly hire a bunch of additional people that need to be in the building that can operate out of that space. It's how my company operates. So I don't have any additional questions or concerns. Do you, John?
No.
All right. So, Ford, do you have anything to
No, I
add?
think we're just waiting for your decision to proceed with the option that we are looking at.
Okay, so then I move to approve the Community Center Building Committee recommendation. Is it option 1, scenario 3? Is that right? Or just option 1?
Option
Option 1 for the director's office and to authorize the town administrator to sign the associated change order.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, John Jeffries.
Well,
Robin,
thank you.
could I just add before everybody leaves us and we move on to the next item that you'll see in the slides at the bottom of the slides that our architects have indicated that even with what everybody feels is an expensive cost to do a 100 square feet of space, essentially to enclose a 10 by 10 workstation and to make it a 10 by 10 office. With all of the cost overruns that are anticipated and that we've already established, we will only be at 86% of our contingent amount.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. Thank you.
So we're well within our budget and anticipated costs.
And we hope to keep the project that way. Okay, Al?
Yeah. Can I just ask one other thing, Robin, before we move to the next item?
You certainly may.
You mentioned, Janice, I wanted to ask you this on Monday, but we were just too far down the schedule of things to do and wanted to be respectful of everybody's time on the building committee. We mentioned storage many times and the impact of storage and how critical storage is to the whole process, to the community, to the programming. What's the intent of Whiting Road? Can you just very briefly explain to everyone watching and who's been following along with the process? We carved out Whiting Road specifically for storage. And you mentioned, as I said many times, the importance of storage. Can you just give us a very brief reminder of what we will be doing with the storage in Whiting Road versus the storage here?
I think I actually was not a part of the project when that was decided to come into play, but I do know that the early programming that I looked at, there was a lot more storage kind of required for the building, whether it be for theater groups that would come in and whatnot. And so what we did is we provided for storage within the facility for things that we can't, carry across the street or whatnot. So the storage that we have right-sized for the building is going to be for the tables and the chairs and the things that we need to move out of our flexible spaces that we can't readily, take completely out of the building. But Whiting Road is intended for all that other storage, some of the things we saw in the community center before it was, unoccupied was, boxes of t-shirts for some of the organizations and things like that. That's what Whiting Road is meant for, is for additional storage, because we couldn't kind of meet the same numbers that people had anticipated, but it's not meant to be storage that the daily use of the building would need readily available and within the footprint of the building.
John, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. This storage in the building is short-term storage that's needed on a daily basis, on a seasonal basis. So it needs to be where it is. You have to be stackable chairs, stackable tables, that kind of thing. So that's going to be in there. Whiting Road was talked about as long-term storage, and we had some theater items and Park and Rec had sports items and that kind of thing. So that's what Whiting Road was in part used by the community center. I assume it's going to be used by other functions throughout the town, but it was long-term and short-term, and it just makes a lot of sense. You're going to have a custodian in the building that's going to be setting up a room, as you noticed, maybe 3 or 4 ways during the course of the day, and they need to be able to move equipment around.
I appreciate it, Ford, and it really is. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation, and thank you for the reminder. I just think it reiterates what Robin said earlier and what you have all brought to our attention continuously, that the 60 programs per day that Janice referred to is just, it's emblematic of the fact that it is a community building. The director of the community building is going to need access to so many different things, coordination of short-term and long-term storage. It just reinforces in everyone's mind that the community center director is going to have a very wide scope, a broad scope of items that they will need to manage on a, as you said, Ford, short-term basis and long-term basis. And Robin, could I just mention one other thing? Today is Ford Spalding's last opportunity to make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen and to the town of Dover as the chairman of the building committee. And I mentioned to everybody who was on the call on Monday how much the Board of Selectmen and the town of Dover appreciate everything that Ford Spalding has done for this process. I did mention to everyone it was my very first year as a chair, and he was the first person I contacted when we took this project on and asked him, would he do this? And he said yes. He told me specifically how he had a plan to get to yes. And I have appreciated, and I know, Robin, you share this, that we have appreciated everything Ford Spalding has done for us in his capacity.
So Ford, thank you. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the years. I really enjoyed everything we did on Minuteman. I think it took a lot to get us to where we are today. So what you taught me was patience, because I did not have much of that. So, and how important it was to get consensus. So, I've really enjoyed over the years working with you, and I know you won't be a stranger to Dover, and I expect to see you all the time, even though you may not be a citizen of the town. So.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I'm only 12 minutes away. I could almost walk to Dover from where I'm going to be. So you will be seeing me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ford. And thank you, everyone. I think this was an excellent outcome. So really appreciate it. So I'm going to move to item 1.2, and that is the presentation by the Department of Public Works Director, Kevin McCabe, regarding the Center Street Bridge Replacement Project and the design contract. And Kevin, I think you're looking for a vote, right? And you're on mute, so that's not a good way to get a vote.
That's correct. So,
But you can never get in trouble, Kevin, you know.
Right.
All right.
So that's an aerial view of the bridge.
All right. So everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So as your introduction alluded to, presenting tonight an update on where we're at in a potential vote from the board for the Center Street Bridge over the Charles River. So bridge replacement project, MassDOT's ID on this is 612978. And again, these nomenclature numbers are just MassDOT has a different numbering system. So as you can see, this is a split bridge, 50% ownership with the town of Dover, 50% ownership with Needham. And that's what those numbers represent through the eyes of MassDOT. So again, Center Street in the town of Dover, and it switches to Central Ave in the town of Needham. This bridge carries an annual daily traffic, ADT, of over 10,000 vehicles. It was originally built in 1847. It's a 3-stone mason arch bridge. There was some rehabilitation work to it roughly in 1955. And our last MassDOT inspection of this bridge was in March of 2022. So this is kind of a couple screenshots of that MassDOT report. You know, the grading scheme, it's kind of the outline of it. And this is the rating on it. So it mostly 5s out of 10. So it's not too alarming, but we are at the point that we need to start thinking about a solution and reconstruction of this bridge. Obviously the approaches and the rails, I'm sure you all been in town a long time and have seen those missing. It seems every month those get hit by a vehicle. So previously, in 2020, Needham engaged with a structural consultant. They identified several structural deficiencies, which included wall displacement, separations, cracked and missing stones, crumbled mortar, bulging and erosion at the edge of the bridge, and obviously the rails, as I mentioned previously. So just a funding summary on this project. In spring of 2022, as this is on our MVP, our Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program for the town of Dover, I submitted an MVP grant. We are alerted in July that the project was not awarded. So then we did a different avenue through MassDOT and the State Transportation Improvement Program, the STIP. I submitted a project need form in September, in the summer of 2022. We were notified in October that the project would be eligible for $13 million in construction federal aid funding. And in December 23rd of 2022, this project was included on the omnibus bill through our Congressman Jake Auchincloss, which secured $2 million for the design and permitting of this project. So at the bottom left is a screenshot from Jake Auchincloss's website. This project was selected by him to move forward through the community program funding request. And to put that in perspective, the congressman was only allowed 15 projects to move forward in. So this took advocacy from former town administrator Dwelly and myself. I had actually met Congressman Auchincloss at a utility luncheon that he was a speaker at with the Public Works Director of Needham. So we actually got to talk to him a little bit about this project as well. The top left is is the top left is a letter from Congressman Auchincloss to the Appropriations Committee advocating for us for this project. And then on the right is the award or the notification that this project through the TIP process would be eligible for the $13 million. So to put that in perspective, Dover and Needham will be receiving this project at no cost to either community, which is going to be in the upwards of $15 million. So the next would be the project timeline and next steps. So just to recap, this summer I did a request for quotation through the QBS, which is a qualified base selection process. MassDOT helped me solicit 5 consultants that were pre-qualified under complex bridge design, which is the category that this falls under. And that consultants that had municipal experience and successful outcomes on STIP projects through MassDOT. So we solicited the RFQ for those consultants, received the qualifications package. I went through that. Then I made my recommendation to MassDOT, who reviewed it, who then submitted it to Federal Highway for their review, which ultimately was reviewed and approved for TEC as a highly qualified for our design to be our engineering designer. TEC stands for the Engineering Corp, and they're out of Lawrence, Mass. And then the next steps here for the contract, obviously, thank you to Congressman Auchincloss, who secured these funds for us. And the current part of the QBS, we had to put a scoping in there. So the designers had a separate, the advantage of that is you're picking a designer based on their qualifications and not strictly price. So that was a separate envelope. So the design for this is approximately $1.5 million. So what that means for that extra 500 contingency is, should something come up, there's a change order, we want to add a water main, whatever it may be, we can have those conversations, and there is money that we could get an amendment with MassDOT for. And similarly, if, say we don't touch any of that money, that $500,000 would go towards the offset of the project overall construction cost. So at this point, MassDOT Federal Highway has approved a contract for us to enter into. So this evening, I'm asking the board for to authorize Town Administrator Blanchard to enter into an agreement and sign contract to enter into an agreement to sign the associated design contracts through us and MassDOT. And pending an approval from the board this evening, the next steps is we're trying to schedule a kickoff and scoping meeting between each town, Dover and Needham, MassDOT, and our design consultant in the second week in March. So with that, thank you. And do you have any questions this evening?
So Kevin, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your efforts in securing this this grant. I mean, that bridge is in dire straits, although I am not looking forward to the reconstruction of the bridge. I was just wondering, do you expect the whole bridge will be taken off limits, or do you think you'll do half and half?
Yes.
And how long are you estimating the construction?
I imagine this would be probably about a year to construct. I guess to give you more of an overall timeline, the design itself, because of how complex this is, it's probably going to be between 1.5 to 2 years. So the advantage of this process is there's different intervals where there's communication and it's sent back. So a 25% design, a 50, 75, and 100. So that there's the comment period from both Federal Highway and MassDOT to make sure this is an approved project via the funding source. And also, if things do come up, I'm imagining a tremendous amount of community engagement between Dover and Needham on this project and the public's input. And then also with the tip process, in February, the DPW got this on the Boston MPO to get it slated on the tip. So similar to our capital process, the STIP does a 5-year capital. So we're obviously on there for the design funds. And as we get closer, it's typically around the 75% mark that they'll slate you kind of for the construction. So with that said, this wouldn't probably be constructed for another 6 to 7 years, which makes
Wow.
it critical to move forward with, granted that it's, rating it at 5s. And obviously, I'm sure it'll either be, similar or slightly less when MassDOT conducts their diving inspection sometime in March.
Okay, so now I have a target for retirement or working from home all the time. Yeah, so thank you. I think it was
6 to 7
great.
years.
Yeah, the clarification for the timeline, because at first I was thinking, well, if we're doing the design in 24, we'll probably be ready the summer of 25 to start construction, but that's not the case. It has to go through a whole approval process, which will just push it out even more.
Kevin, so 6 or 7 years realistic between now and the time that the bridge is completed, even with all the grants that have been approved today. So what happens is at some point in time, the 10,000 cars that you talked about have got to go somewhere else. And there's only 2 ways to get over the Charles River. You either have to go Claybrook and go over on Dover Road, or you go Dover Road and you go over the Charles River in South Natick, right? Those are the 2 westbound side. To get over the Charles River, you could also go Willow Street or to go down to the bridge that's currently under construction at the bottom of Dedham Street. So are you going to have to do anything to secure additional grants, additional funding, additional monies to get those other options to get out of Dover, into Dover, over the Charles River, while you're simultaneously doing this for the next 6 or 7 years?
To reconstruct those bridges, I guess I'm not.
No, just you gotta, so you've got on Willow Street, to get over the Willow Street Bridge, we have temporary plates in place. To get over the bridge at the bottom of Dedham Street, it's currently 1 lane is closed. There's a construction project currently. To get over the other 2 bridges, that's outside of Dover. The other one is Dover to Needham, and the other is South Natick. So will we need additional money to repair, to replace, to construct anything on the existing places, on the existing bridges, while this one is under construction as well?
From what I recall, looking at the MassDOT's bridge list, the oldest bridge we have in town is obviously the Center Street Bridge, leaving Dover, right? And then pretty much everything's in the 2000s that was reconstructed. I know the railroad bridge that the MBTA owns is probably the late 70s, but nothing is in dire straits that even putting, the more ADT to the other bridges, would put those in kind of a worser condition to, I guess, offset the traffic. The other comment I would make is, thankfully, the support of the town of Dover, we were able to do our bank stabilization project on Claybrook, because not that work would have been catastrophic to send more cars down Claybrook.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally.
Right.
Thank you.
And I also think it's important that Chestnut Street Bridge, the work that's being done there is not bridge failure. It's a leaky transformer. And because of the high level of the water, it's just taking a lot longer. My understanding is they're not able to access it very easily to repair it. And so it's just taking a whole lot longer to repair it than expected. So it has nothing to do with the bridge. All right, so Kevin, I appreciate this. Certainly a lot of work going on with infrastructure in the town of Dover. So I move to authorize the town administrator to sign the design contracts associated with the Center Street Bridge replacement project.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, John Jeffries.
So thank you. So Kevin, you may have a few gray hairs by the time this starts.
They started coming in when I started in March of 2022. So I may be fully gray by the
So
time.
you may be fully gray by then, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. Look at Bobby Tosi. Bobby Tosi is only 34 years old. He looks fabulous.
Oh God, I'd kill to be 34.
So thank you very much.
Thank you to the board.
Yeah, so the next item of business here is appointments. And is this me, Mike, or you?
Well, it's you're listed, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
So enclosed in your packet was a memo from Acting Chief Wilcox requesting the appointment of Anthony Madden to the Dover Police Department as a full-time police officer. There is also in your notes that we have a vacancy on the Veterans Grave Officer position as a result of term limits, and Fred Sears has agreed to serve, and so there's a suggested motion for you to make those two appointments.
Okay.
Just for background, Acting Chief Wilcox, understanding that there's a new chief coming on, did reach out to the incoming chief just to get his support of this, which he did receive. And just noted that within the last several months, we had 3 officers leave. And so this hire of Officer Madden would be really critical to the department. So he would appreciate your support and certainly recommend your approval.
So the only question I was going to ask Acting Police Chief Todd Wilcox was whether or not he had reached out to the new chief. So excellent. So I'm glad that was done. And I understand that he couldn't make it this evening, but the memo was sufficient and covered, gave us enough information to make this appointment. So I'm going to move to appoint Anthony Madden to the Dover Police Department as a full-time officer for a term ending on June 30th, 2024, subject to the customary stipulations of the Dover Police Department. And then I move to appoint Fred Sears as the Veteran Grave Officer for a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Second to both.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, John Jeffries. Robin, can I just add that I did also speak with Acting Chief Wilcox, asked all the same questions that Michael Blanchard covered, and it was a unanimous decision between Chief Vinci and Acting Chief Wilcox that we move as quickly as possible. And I didn't think that I'm not at all surprised that they were on the same page. It's just consistent with everything that we have been discussing about Chief Vinci and Acting Chief Wilcox and the department and how well the department has operated. I think it's a credit to Acting Chief Wilcox, and I just want to thank him. And I also want to thank all the members of the department. It has been a very difficult past month we've had lots of events in Dover that some are very well known, some have not been very well known, and the police force and the leadership of the police force have functioned remarkably well. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank them, and I hope that they are listening. Thank you, Robin.
I appreciate that, John. And so we will move on to the next item of business. And this one, you are the listed presenter, Mr. Blanchard.
Yes.
And it's to go over the 2024 annual town meeting warrant. And just as a reminder to everybody, the warrant closes on Friday.
That's right. So that's really this agenda. We don't have a final list yet, but Owner and I will update that and get it to the board. And then we'll start a more in-depth review at your next meeting, but the warrant does close. We have all the customary annual articles, slotted and ready to go. In addition, we've received a number from the planning board, including construction hour bylaws, some solar bylaws related to small and medium scale solar projects, as well as some land use zoning and accessory dwelling unit language changes. We have a placeholder for our housing task force and some work on some housing study pieces there. We have some changes to some revolving funds, including a new revolving fund for the community center as that comes online. And then we also have an article submitted by the Board of Assessors, and they are looking to authorize to enter into a contract beyond 3 years. That is allowed under Massachusetts general law with vendors if town meeting approves, and there's some benefit to them doing that as they have a 5-year reclassification cycle. So there's some benefits to them getting on a similar contract for that process. So as I said, I really appreciate all of Mona's work in collating all this. We'll update and get it to you. We also have 2 citizens petitions that look like they're about to be finalized. One is related to a sidewalk installation, and one is related to a dog leash law requiring dogs to be leashed in the community. So we'll work with town council to finalize that. And again, we'll have that before you once the warrant closes.
And I believe there was also a request made by capital budgets for a placeholder to put in the event that they want to do a special type of capital or separate capital warrant.
Correct. There's a placeholder on there for that as well.
Okay.
And Michael, can we have just a quick conversation regarding the item that you and I covered this week with respect to a potential placeholder for Hale as the motivation for having it has been our hope, it's been our understanding, it's been the goal to have a separate town meeting for Hale. The motivation for putting a placeholder on the annual town meeting agenda was to get the document, the conservation restriction document, into the hands of as many people in open space, conservation commission, and planning, so they can opine, so they can read, so they can see the actual document that the Board of Selectmen in Dover have approved in draft form. So Michael and I had this conversation, Robin, and the issue that we that's not the right word, the item that we discussed was, it's going to be our intent to have the open hearing for Hale at the same time that we have the open hearing for town meeting. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, as long as things continue to move as we hope, that would be the intention. Correct.
So, Robin, if that is the intent, it really that sort of mitigates the need to have a separate placeholder. And if we can get Hale and if we can get a CR, if we can get Hale to agree, which Michael is going to report in his town administrator's report, the progress that he made since yesterday on that item, then it would maybe that would mitigate the need for a placeholder if we could get the CR to the boards that need to opine on it as soon as possible.
Well, I'm a little confused because I don't understand why, in order to get the CR to those boards, you need to have a warrant or a placeholder on the warrant. I think we said all along that we would do a special town meeting on Hale, and that would then in and of itself have its own warrant. So I'm confused. We can, there needs to be an extensive communication campaign surrounding this, and the CR will get into the hands of everybody, because once it's approved by the town and Hale, it will be made public. And I would imagine we would have sessions going over it and get input from people. So I'm just concerned that having this as a warrant article is just going to confuse the issue.
One word,
I think
time.
it's part of this town meeting, which it isn't.
So I agree. And as a placeholder, the motivation was timing to get the CR into the hands of people sooner rather than later. There's a fear that if we don't have the CR with enough time to really analyze it, to really get it understood, to really have the number of weeks, months, quite frankly, that it may take to get this into the hands of all the stakeholders, that we would be doing people a disservice if we tried to get it done very quickly. And the issue that I want to give us, or the opportunity that I want to give everyone, is more time. So literally, this is just a time starting where if we start in June, let's just say hypothetically, work backwards, we have 5 months to get people prepared. So
and we don't have a CR that's been approved. I mean, that's, I am failing to see the benefit of putting a placeholder. You know, we can certainly put a placeholder on here, but I'm failing to see the benefit of having a placeholder for the CR. I don't understand how that's going to get the CR in the hands of the various committees and citizens. I mean, once it's public, it's available to anybody.
Right.
I don't see how putting it on the warrant speeds that up.
It gets it. Again, the motivation was to get it out of from who at Hale. We, the Board of Selectmen in Dover, have already voted on a draft CR. We've approved it. We
No,
just
we
need.
have not. We voted on. No, we have not. No, John, in executive session, we said we believed that the CR that we looked at was substantively complete, and
Correct.
it was pending additional information.
Correct.
So it hasn't been voted on by the board because it's still being negotiated in
Correct. It's a draft.
session.
It's a negotiated in executive session. We want to move this along.
Right. So no, I completely understand that, and we all do, but we need a final CR that we can look at and review and vote on before we can make it public, I believe. Am I correct, Mike?
Yeah, so if you'd like, I could, I know it's out of order a little, but I could tie my Hale update in now since we're talking about it.
That's perfect, because maybe that will help me understand the benefit.
Sure. So John called, I very much understand his intention. One of my concerns is if it's a placeholder on the annual town meeting, people will be confused that it'll be discussed that night. And the intention is to have a separate special town meeting with one possibility, if things continue to move as we hope, that it would be around the same time of the annual. And that's what led to our conversation of, even though it would be a separate warrant, you may not need a placeholder on the annual, it would be a concurrent process. And therefore we would have one open hearing that could cover all of our normal annual town meeting items, as well as the special town meeting. Again, this has to be talked with the moderator, et cetera, but these are just kind of what we were thinking. Again, this is all an executive session. However, there's been public statements, so I think it is public knowledge that since we started this process, Hale and Westwood have decided to not continue their negotiations for a CR, and so we have continued as Dover alone. So the board did meet in executive session, did approve myself as the town administrator to release a draft CR when we felt, we meaning Dover, Westwood, the trustees, and Hale felt it was a solid draft. Unfortunately, we didn't get there with Westwood, so we've gone back and reworked the document as you know, we kind of had to untangle it because really it was one document for two towns.
It was commingled.
It was commingled. So just for example, we've met 4 times in the last 7 days with Hale and the trustees to appreciate John's point. We are really working hard to get this done and get it out to the public. So we're having a very aggressive meeting schedule. It's one of the reasons my update later is not very long, because I feel like it's been Hale all the time. So we're very supportive of that. We agree. And I think because the document has so substantially changed, my recommendation is that your prior vote validly probably is not valid anymore. So I think we'll bring it back to you to look at this uncommingled document that's Dover only, to get your blessing, whether it's the actual draft or to allow me to release it when we feel it's in a solid place. But again, we're all on the same page. We want as much notice as possible for not only boards and committees to review this, but for the public at large. And we'll continue to push that forward.
And I think my concern is exactly the same as yours, is even discussing this at the open hearing for town meeting confuses the issue. This issue is important to all citizens of Dover, Hale, and I think it's a big ask, and it really deserves to be discussed as, in my opinion, as a single item, not to be confused. And if some of the other issues, like the rail trail single items that are very important to the town, are indicative, we're going to get 1,000 people at these meetings. So I really don't think we should be commingling this with regular town business.
Mike, do you think,
having
it's
said
possible-
that, I think that doesn't mean you can't start a public outreach campaign, because this is going to come on the heels of town meeting, just like the community center did, John. So it's sort of the same thing,
I don't
right?
disagree with any of that, Robin, but we can't start a public outreach campaign until we have a CR.
Right. So
So
that's
the-
the critical.
The critical thing is to have the CR. So
Right.
we are in agreement that is where it must begin. Mike, in your opinion, how much longer do you think it will take to where you can bring to us and we meet, as you said, in executive session to agree on a draft version that we can bring to our boards and committees?
Sure. So our working group is working very hard to have a draft. The original intent was by the end of this month. The only question there, and again, being cognizant of executive session, is there is a current discussion to provide the document to some of the key boards and committees for them to meet in executive session so they can provide an opinion to you as the selectmen before that draft goes public. So in other words, try to get a lot of the internal board and committee comments addressed so that we have a more polished document before it's released to the public. So just kind of talking through what that timeline would look like, how quickly that could happen.
As a matter of fact, doing that, I think, would speed up this whole process, because we would get input already from the key committees, and that way the CR that gets out in public has been vetted by all critical stakeholders.
That's
And
exactly.
I'm sure, and they've been they've been dying to get a hold of this. So I'm sure those committees will turn it around really quickly.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Well, that's exactly the point. That is the intent of this entire conversation. And we are trying to move this forward.
And sounds like you guys are making a lot of really good progress, so.
Yeah, we are, because, again, it wasn't that, it's not that the whole document had to be rewritten, but it does take time to unwind some of the pieces that involve both communities,
Right.
where we are moving quickly.
So anytime you need a meeting, let me know. I will
Okay.
be in Europe the week of the 29th of January, but if you do, I can do meetings as like in the afternoon or the early morning is better.
Okay, perfect.
But I'm willing to juggle things and accommodate any meeting that's necessary. I don't want to be the one holding this up.
Mike, thank you. That's very
Thank you.
helpful.
Appreciate it.
Robin, do you need a motion or that's just a
No, I
review?
think we can, we can move to the next item of business, which is the FY25 budget update.
Yep. So I just have a very brief, sometimes the visual is helpful, so I just did a brief PowerPoint.
I love visuals, right?
Okay. And you'll have to let me know if it shows.
It's
Is it
good.
showing it full screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good, perfect. Okay, so again, I presented our preliminary budget at the end of November to the board, and then to the warrant committee in December. And there have, not been a ton of changes because of a lot of what really drives this. Actually, I'll just go to the next slide. Some of the big ticket items are things like our insurance, our health insurance, and we still do not have final numbers for that. So, we are still waiting. State aid is, usually the end of January. But I just wanted to touch on some of the internal changes that we're making to keep you up to date as we move forward. So just as a really broad overview, you can see our FY24 budget, our FY25 version 1, and then our version 2, I guess I'm calling it, which is what I'm talking about tonight, which sees a reduction of over $300,000 in our ask. And I just wanted to highlight on what some of those were. And again, this is just kind of the first step in a number to bring that number down. So the first is the board knows we have had a finance director who it's been Carl Valenti, who's barely been a finance director. I feel he's been a number of other things and not that, unfortunately, but he is currently back to being a finance director. And we really see the need to make that a full-time position, not a consulting position. So one of the ways we're looking to help offset that is Carl is paid out of our expenses, and obviously we're not going to need his services, once if we do get a full-time position on. So in this first fiscal year of this position as proposed, we're proposing to cut $50,000 from the professional services that would basically be applied towards the salary of that full-time position. In future years, that cut would be greater. What we really allotted for is one, some unknown of when a potential candidate could start, and two, to allow for a transition time. We just think that's so critical given the turnover that's taking place here at the townhouse, that, to have, I'm looking at maybe a 3-month time frame where Carl could work with a new finance director to get them up to speed and to just transition them over. So in the first year, we'd be looking at a 50,000 cut. It would be greater going forward once that transition is over. Again, as the board knows, we transferred money, or basically funding, for what was a municipal project manager position to a full-time HR director. However, during the process of hiring a full-time HR director, the town worked out an agreement with the schools to share a position. So we get 40% of the HR director, the schools get 60%. We have found that is not sufficient. Again, different people are here now, but the concept at the time was that the HR responsibilities were taking basically a full-time job of the assistant town administrator at the time. And so there was a need to break that off into a full-time HR position. We went with a 40% position, so we're kind of still in the same spot. We're not able to do all of the things that we would like to do. So in order to keep that position and fund it full time, we've eliminated a request from the Treasurer Collector's Office for a payroll and benefits coordinator position. So it's $61,545, because the benefits that are currently handled in the Treasurer Collector's Office, which really doesn't make the most sense. It's kind of in every community where they were just stuck because it involved payroll deductions, would be taken over by the HR director if they were here full time. So again, that we would cut that proposed position because we would like to have that full-time HR director position. Back to the municipal project manager. Again, that was cut for the HR director position, but we really feel that that is such a critical position. We have no internal IT staff. As the board knows, a number of our goals and priorities involve projects, and having not a dedicated person to help manage those is proving very difficult to really get things off the ground and running. So what we've proposed is in our data processing budget, we've had an unfilled position for a number of years of a business analyst. I think that's an important position. It was kind of like a catch-all. That position would do a lot of different things as needed for the town, but I really feel that the municipal project manager position is just so critical that we'd be willing to cut that funding in that position. Again, this has been in the budget for a number of years, just never filled. So that $66,576 would go towards the municipal project manager position. Then just a couple other cuts. Norfolk County Retirement, we were able to reduce that line item by $90,000 as we got a final assessment number that was reduced over our estimate. And then Minuteman Regional, which I'll touch a little bit on in my update, but their assessment came in a little bit lower, $41,187 lower than what we had estimated. So that's that total of the just over $309,000 that we've reduced our request by at this time. And again, we certainly anticipate more as some of the bigger numbers start to become more clear.
So Mike, go back. So the total budget is around 47 million?
Yes, just under right now. So the first version we presented was just over 47, and now we are under that with these cuts. And this cut, I think I have a number. Sorry. Yeah, it's most of this cut is out of the general government line. So the salary and expenses is where most of the funding is being cut out of for the salaries.
So that's a 10% increase over fiscal year 24.
Correct. The initial increase was 10% on the nose. It is slightly less now in version 2.
Yeah, it's like 9.8.
Yeah, it's absolutely a big number. There is a part of this in both of these numbers that I think we'll do an exercise to back it out, which is the community-centered debt. So that's excluded debt, but that number is built in here. So it's a little misleading because that's additional debt that the community agreed to pay as kind of outside of the operating budget, but it is shown here. So I think we'll do an exercise to back that out because I think you'll see a reduction of a couple more percentage points there because that number, while it's additional money going out, it's also additional money coming in.
Coming back in.
Right. I also think it's really important to show more detail than just this number, and certainly not the level of detail that was put into the budget report that you sent out. But we need to find a level of detail that is sufficient so that we understand, where these increases are coming from, what's driving them. So I can brainstorm with you and Carl if you want, because I've been sitting in the warrant committee meetings, and it's very hard to, when departments come in and present their budgets, to just look at that budget in a separate silo. You really need to understand the full impact. And we also need to be able to demonstrate to the community, when we brought on the community center debt, we also demonstrated to the community that we would utilize free cash to make the tax increase, to make them whole with respect to the tax increase while we were waiting for the Chickering debt to fall off. And then
Right.
basically this debt would just replace the Chickering debt. So we need to be able to show that, because when you just look at this number, you know, you're saying, holy smoke, what are they doing? It's a 9.8% increase. And, you know, we need to start looking really closely at all these headcounts that they're asking for and all the additional consulting. So I really think we need to show some more detail. And I agree with you. We need to, because there was much more of a debt impact in 25 than in 24.
Correct. And what we're working to finalize, which I'll share, certainly happy to share a draft with the board, and then perhaps for your next meeting and when I meet with the warrant committee, a more detailed presentation of these numbers in a spreadsheet format that will, again, we'll try not to give, not the detail in the budget book, but, you know, it kind of captures that. It shows by department, the different salaries, expenses, the percent change, so you can kind of get a more wholesale picture of everything that's happening, all the changes that are happening.
Right. I mean, I think it would be also really helpful to go back maybe 2 years or 3 years, so you could see the actuals in those 3 years, because even within the 24 budget, there are contingencies built into that, because we have to build contingencies into every budget. So, so
2024, we wouldn't obviously have actuals yet, but we do have actuals on this spreadsheet we're working on back to FY20. Now, maybe that's too far back, but we could make that number whatever you want to see. So you can see historical actuals appropriated for last year and then proposed for this year, and then the percent change. So you can see that.
Right, because that was, I still remember Bob's criticism, and it was a good one, or as he was striving for us to be better, but to have more detail in the budget presentation. So it's a fine line between too much detail, and I think showing it in a spreadsheet format kind of makes a lot of sense. So it's just figuring out what's the level of detail, and then being able to explain at a really high level what are the drivers, what are the key drivers that are driving what our ask for 25.
I think it's going to be easy to see, Robin, when Michael shows in the presentation, as we had changed them 3 years ago to reflect the percentage of the line item change. You may recall that we instituted that, and it's a very visually easy to understand tool. When you look at these in the aggregate, you can then just drop down to the line item and see where that increase and how it's impacted. And then, of course, if it's in a department, where the department's budget has gone compared, as you said, Robin, to the years past. That was something we did 3 years ago.
Yep. And so we'll have that finalized, for you and for the public. And again, we're happy to work with you to tweak if things don't look the way you want, or you'd like more or less information. We can work on that.
Right. Because I just think, I think Warren has a difficult task when they're not looking at the full picture, but I fully understand that the full picture includes placeholders that are being refined.
Sure.
So I think they really need to see that full picture.
Couldn't agree more.
However, I will pay a compliment to whomever put together the template. That is the first time the seal of Dover has looked crisp and proportionally correct. So
I had to work hard to find a version that looked that good, but I found one deep in our computer shared drive. So yeah, thank you.
Right. Excellent. See, I forgot I was chair and then I had to continue. So the next item of business here is a discussion and a vote on the application of the ARPA funds for the Public Safety Communication Tower and for the Department of Public Works building enhanced restoration of the exterior wall.
Yes. Doesn't that sound fancy? Mona came up with that.
Yeah,
So,
good work, Mona.
Well done.
so there's two pieces here. So you may recall, this may seem like a repeat as I went through your files, you have approved an ARPA application for the police communications in the past. What that involved, just for your benefit, as a reminder, the prior communication failed as a result of old Verizon copper lines, which required an emergency to install a temporary tower. It's actually attached
Up
to
up on Snow's Hill.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Correct.
So that happened. Unfortunately, that was hit by lightning. I actually believe twice, and damaged a lot of the equipment on the tower. So we've gone through our insurance, and they've covering a large portion of it, but there's going to be a smaller portion that is not covered and beyond what our limits were. So we thought the best way to handle that, because it's not budgeted for, is through the ARPA money, which is an allowed use for things like this. The other piece is, as you know, I'm very happy to report we didn't have any flooding recently, but our DPW highway garage has flooded a couple times. It's currently being stored. Our insurance is covering the costs, which that's why you have insurance. However, there was a recommendation internally from building maintenance at DPW to upgrade a portion of the exterior of the building. We worked with insurance, and unfortunately, they would not pay for that upgrade, which, although we tried, it makes sense. And so we have decided, and requesting that you approve, that we go ahead with that work. It provides some additional waterproofing. It's a knee wall, is what it's called. Carl's on the line if you had specific questions, but we thought that would be an appropriate use, again, of the ARPA money, as we do not have funding for that. As the board may recall, the ARPA funding is limited. It needs to be accounted for by the end of the next calendar year. So, these are small, good uses to start to use that money so that we don't have to send it. So I just ask your approval to submit applications to the county for those uses. And then, as the numbers get finalized, we'll get actual hard numbers to the county and be able to pay these costs out of that funding.
So just to make sure that I understand correctly, so we've already received the ARPA funds, and then this is just getting approval to utilize some of the funds that we've already received for these two instances. Is that correct?
Mostly, yes. So there's three pots of money from ARPA. One pot we received already, that's correct. And then there's two pots the county holds. One is called revenue replacement, which is for things, little projects like this. And then there's a pot of money for infrastructure, which we talked about for the DPW, the drainage around the garage. So this is the other two pots. So some of it could be local, some of it could be the county, depending on how our finance director decides to allocate that. But the board, when you first got the ARPA money, established a policy that you would bless any requests for that money. And so that's
all right.
why
So these are requests, and how much are we requesting for each?
So it's going to be up beyond this, but right now the estimate for the radio tower is just over 123,000.
Right.
And the wall, Carl, do you have I don't know if he's on, if he has the numbers. Right now we have 2 bills in. We do expect another. So it's just about 27,000 and an additional 2,500. And then Carl, I know we're waiting for one more bill.
Yeah, it's right around 30,000 to do the project.
That's the total cost.
Total, correct.
So, Carl, that brings the wall that is essentially you're extending the foundation from the grade to about 3 feet above the grade. Is that correct?
Yes, the front of the building is on a slab.
Okay.
And so my recommendation was to increase foundation area basically in the front of the building to stop any penetrations into the building.
How tall is that going to be?
It's just below the window line. It's about 3 feet.
About 3 feet. That's what I said. About 3 feet.
And it's gonna be, it's not gonna look like an add-on. It's gonna look like it was made for the building.
So will you magically be able to turn the lights off now if we're doing all this work on the front of the building?
Yeah, I took care of that last week, John.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So were we asking for the full 123,000?
So what I would ask, and I apologize, this is in the motion, I would ask for the communication tower, it would be up to 30,000. So 100,000 is being covered by insurance, and again, we just want to attribute the full cost, so up to 30. And then for the wall, Carl, are you comfortable for up to 30 on the wall, or perhaps a little higher just to cover any?
No, I think 30,000 should cover everything.
Okay. So up to 30 for each. Understanding the insurance would also pay $100,000 for you.
Okay.
Tower.
Michael, for the tower, are we the truck that is currently servicing as the base of the tower? Are we replacing the tower in a new truck? How does that work?
It's a permanent structure.
Well, it was a really envisioned as from Chief McGowan, and I think this will be, unfortunately, one of the very first things I meet with Chief Incy about is how he wants to proceed with this. But the original project was that this would be a temporary solution for this tower, which is up and running and by all accounts working very well, but that there would be a permanent solution in that permanent equipment would be installed on an existing fire tower that is at Snows Hill now, that's owned by DCR.
Right.
And so that there was kind of a two-part project. This initial, have the temporary there to maintain service for however long it takes us to get that permanent solution.
And this $123,000 is the permanent solution.
Nope. So just to recap, this is a result of the damage from the lightning strike. So as part of the agreement, no, Dover was responsible for the insurance. 100,000 is being paid by our insurance carrier, and we do have a relatively small balance that we need to cover, and that's the request for the ARPA funds. As obviously it wasn't budgeted for as part of our operating budget.
Okay, I'm very confused tonight for some reason.
No, Robin, well, this is very confusing subject. I was actually over at the police department today. I met with Acting Chief Wilcox and Sergeant Menzie to review this. I was going to joke earlier when I was in Sergeant Wilcox's office. He had this odd countdown timer. I said, "What's that?" He said, "That's the day Chief Vincey's done." No, it is a very confusing project. There's a lot of moving pieces. And through no fault of anyone, how dare he retire? But when Chief McGowan retired, it got inherited, and we're trying to pick that ball back up. And again, we're gonna pass the. And
you were wondering why he retired.
Right.
We told the acting chief that he would only be acting chief for 3 months. That was 3 months ago.
That's right.
So
lightning doesn't strike 3 times, right?
The countdown is going in the wrong direction. His countdown has hit 0, and now it's going the wrong way. It just keeps adding and adding. So Robin, I think that you should go up into the fire tower and inspect it, and to make sure that there was no damage.
John, it says no public access. Do not climb the structure. I've walked around there. Yes. So I am going to move to approve the Town of Dover's application for ARPA, which is American Rescue Plan Act funds, to cover the cost associated with the public safety community tower for up to $30,000, and for the enhanced restoration of the exterior wall of the Department of Public Works building for $30,000, up to $30,000.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, John Jeffries.
Excellent.
And Carl, you promised that the switches work on all the lights.
Well, would you like
Well,
Carl to
did-
arrange that they get struck by lightning?
Did you notice that they were on during the snowstorm on Sunday? I personally put them on just for you, John.
Thank you.
All right, so because we're running late here, so moving right along is Board of Selectmen updates. So quickly, I've been attending the warrant committee meetings as the liaison, and the feedback I got was it would be really helpful to them to get the entire picture of what the budget looks like as they begin to vet their process. There are a lot of asks for additional consulting services from departments. There's also a lot of asks for additional hours and additional headcount. So, we really need to pull everything together and then see what is sustainable. With respect to capital budgets, we're actually almost done going through our vetting process. Certainly the Board of Selectmen's vote to utilize ARPA funds for $725,000 for some of the infrastructure projects on the capital budget list really helped. One of the other items, one of the capital budgets committee members built this amazing spreadsheet to try and determine a specific score for helping us determine when vehicles should be replaced. It's amazing. So we're actually going to ask Kevin if he can fill it in to help us iron out the bugs in the spreadsheet. You need quite a powerful computer to bring it up. It was very impressive. So hopefully it works. I mean, it looks really good, but we thought it would be good if we could get somebody to test it out. So we are making a lot of progress there. On the housing task force, I need to circle back with some of the members. We did ask for a placeholder on the warrant, and we really need to now determine what consulting services we may need or can justify to put in that warrant as we think about multifamily development or housing or different kinds of housing options in the town of Dover. We really don't have the expertise in town, and we do need some help from consultants. And I feel as though I've been very busy attending meetings, but that is the only thing I have to update. John, do you have?
It's a lot, Robin. We have been attending a whole lot of meetings. If you think about, you add a third more meetings to your schedule. Just think about what the past month has been like. It's been a lot. So think Monday, as anybody who's been watching we have reported, Monday we had a lengthy conversation in a meeting with the Carroll Building Committee.
Excellent outcome, though.
Excellent outcome. I asked the same questions that you asked, Robin, in a whole lot more detail as to how it would be humanly possible for a 100 square foot enclosed office to take 2 weeks of drafting time and to cost $12,500, and to add, in the end, when you deduct what we've already paid into the consultants, what we've already paid into the architects, and then the $12,000, what we're really talking about, the net of that $50,000 is really just $16,000, but still $16,000 to enclose a 100 square foot office in a 20 1,000 square foot building just seems absolutely a whole lot of money. So we went really into.
I'm taking up drafting.
Yes, it's a very lucrative profession, and so is engineering, and so is fire safety. But having said all that, I can just tell you the amount of detail that we covered this evening, we did in 3 times the amount of detail. And I can also tell you that Bob Springett had a lot of notes that I have been trying to follow with regards to the building committee. And on my list was to thank Ford as well, which we've done, and all the other members, and Dave Billings, who's going to step in and take Ford's place. So thank you to all the members of the building committee. As you said, Robin, good outcome. Then the next week, which we've also already covered, was a very lively open space discussion where we are trying the goal that we've come to to put the emphasis and a point on our earlier conversation, Robin. It's all about getting as much information into the hands of the people who can opine on it as it pertains to their committee, open space, Concom, and planning. So that was the genesis of the Hale Task Force, having the conversation about putting a placeholder and getting the CR into people's hands is really the objective. So we've covered that. And finally, Robin, the committee for financial, Dave Haviland is on the call this evening. He and I and Kate are going to meet again next week, and we're going to again just put a sharper point on specifics for our Carl Valenti, his team, and the interaction that we will have with our vendors. So that is my report, and I will just echo what you said, Robin. It seems like we are spending a lot of time. One other thing I just want to mention, that tomorrow the signatures are due for selectmen and the special election. That was a big part of these past 3 weeks. We have been working and meeting and speaking with lots of different groups as it pertains to people who will be running. And I know that we've had success. We've had a successful candidate who's achieved enough signatures. So I am very much looking forward to this next phase of the process. And
Well, to me, March 5th couldn't come soon enough.
and it's been a thorough process. That's my report. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you for your update, of which you've given us some already.
Most of everything has already been covered.
Sorry,
And the agendas looked fine. I didn't have anything I wanted to.
Perfect. So we already touched on Hale. We've already, talked about operating capital. You already touched on special town election. Just to put a fine point on it, yes, special town election Tuesday, March 5th from 7 to 8. The warrant was dropped at the post office today. So this will be coming to, I don't know if it's a house near you. So please participate. As I alluded to earlier, I had the opportunity to meet this afternoon, or I guess it was a morning, with the acting superintendent, Kevin Mahoney of Minuteman. Joining us was outgoing school committee member Ford Spalding and incoming school committee member Maggie Sharon. We talked about the budget, which we had some good news on earlier. And they also have a real interesting development that they're working on, which is a public-private partnership with Lesley University as part of their athletic facilities, and some ability to complete the build out of those facilities using private funding, which was kind of exciting. I'm looking forward. I was invited for a tour, so I'm looking forward to going up there to see the school. I heard it's pretty awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And Maggie is a phenomenal choice to take over from Ford. I mean, Ford worked tirelessly at Minuteman and was so passionate about it, and was instrumental in helping get the 16 towns that belong to the region to vote in favor of building this new school. And I think Maggie's background is fantastic, and she'll be a great representative for us. And you should go on the tour and see if they let you bring other people. They did an amazing job there. And the skills that the students get over and above just a regular education, for hands-on learners, that place, I can't say enough good things about that place. They're really teaching, giving students a foundation for a skill set. Some of them go on to university, others go on to, to be tradespeople, but they give you the advantage. It's the most phenomenal place. It really is.
Yeah,
It's inspirational when you walk
yes.
in there. You can't stop smiling.
That's great. Just a couple of updates. One is, as the board knows, but just for the community's reminder, we have a very good working relationship with Aquarian Water. However, they are an independent private company. However, I do make an effort to meet with them. We actually met with them this morning to talk about things in the future, ways they're looking to improve water quality, and I anticipate they'll be before you, the board, just to provide kind of an overall community update and discuss some of the things they're working on in the near future. So stay tuned for that. And then last, Kevin's not on anymore. I should have interrupted, but I just wanted to thank DPW. We had our first snowstorm under our belt, which was great. One of the many things I was told when I came here, but one is we have the best plowed roads. When I came to work after the snowstorm, I agreed with that. They did an excellent job. And then, obviously with the various wind and rainstorms we've had, there's some more coming. They did an excellent job dealing with that. And lastly, I'll just, thank our partners at the state. We had some flooding that was related to some state issues, and we were able to get them out here very quickly to address that. So appreciate the cooperation in those sort of difficult times. It's really helpful when we have good working relationships with our state legislators and our state departments, both in our office here, but also in DPW. It really goes a long way and is very helpful to get some things done. So, and that's all I had for tonight.
And I forgot in my update, but I want to make a plug and compliment Chris for the putting out the digital newsletter. There was a lot of content in it. And I saw your email this morning to remind people to submit ideas for content. I had friends that moved out of Dover that were asking me what was going on. And I said, just go on our website and read our digital newsletter. So thanks a lot, Chris. It was really full of excellent information. And as we begin to prepare for town meeting, it's really going to be a great medium to get information out. And I was thinking maybe we could even do a special edition that just focuses on town meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you guys think it's a good idea.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. As we get closer, and then if we do indeed have a special, making sure people are very clear what's happening when. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah,
right.
It's along the same lines, Robin. I think it would be really helpful. We used to have on the website a link, to Hale and to Hale Education, and I think that would be very in keeping, Chris, with what we've been talking about this evening and the conservation restriction. Once you get the conservation restriction into the hands of these groups, it's going to be really beneficial to have as much detail as we can on our site from a link, or have a link on our site to get people as much detailed information as they can regarding Hale.
Yeah, absolutely. We can, when it's appropriate, look into some strategies on getting information into the hands of, stakeholders. So we'll be prepared for that.
Great, thank you. So then Are you finished, Mike, or?
Yes,
Jamie?
that's it for tonight. Yep.
Okay, all right. So then I'm going to move to the consent agenda, which consists of approving and accepting expenditures of the Mass Office of Elders Affairs for a COA formula grant for $20,258. Approval and acceptance, and acceptance of expenditures of Friends of the COA for a gift of $5,000. Approval of the 2024 IRS mileage reimbursement rate of 0.67 or 67 cents per mile. Approval of a couple of special one-day liquor licenses for January 27th, February 5th, February 7th, 12th, 14th, 2 on the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, 1 on the 26th and the 28th of February, and approval of the January 20th and February 6th, 2023 BOS open session meeting minutes. So I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, John Jeffries.
And with that, oh, somehow we got back on track. I am going to move to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Seconded and in favor.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, John Jeffries.
And I hope all of you have a nice long weekend.
That's right.
Snow comes on Tuesday instead, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy everybody, and thanks for all your hard work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
It takes
everyone.
all of us to make
Thank
this
you.
town run. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.